Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host, and we are discussing Sandra Brown's book, How to Spot a Dangerous Person Before You Get Involved. And we've been covering each of the 8 types of dangerous persons. And we've also mentioned how it's not necessarily exclusive for someone to be just one of the 8, that she's got what we call the combo pack person, which can be a blending of 1, 2, or more of these, but they're pretty good descriptions of the various types of creatures out there to look out for. And today's topic is the emotional predator, which ties nicely in with all these narcissistic videos. Same theme, so it'll be familiar territory. But she starts off the chapter by saying, "Okay, ladies," and again, this is geared towards women who have male dangerous people in their lives. And I've tried to stress repeatedly, not only men are dangerous. Women can be dangerous too, but we'll give her the benefit for this beginning. But she says, "Okay, ladies, this is as bad as it gets. The predator has a nose for neediness in the women that he pursues. It's his best skill, and he will use it to hunt you down and reel you in." Howard the Hunter. The emotional predator qualifies as the pinnacle of poisonous and pathological dating choices. He could, in fact, be called the emotional psychic. That's because it's his ability to intuit and sense a woman's emotional vulnerabilities that places her at risk. Webster defines predatory as having a disposition to injure or exploit others for one's own gain. It defines predator as one that preys, destroys, or devours. That's a good summation of how this dangerous person operates. Ask yourself if these sound like normal dating behaviors. Who but the most pathological among us would set out to exploit, prey on, destroy, or devour? The emotional predator's pathology makes him or her incredibly successful and absolutely dangerous. These people can actually make the most charming dates, at least initially. However, remember also that if this person's pathological, this implies the person cannot be cured. The more pathologically disordered this person is, the more incurable, and ironically, the more convincing these people can be, many times. They will hone in on your vulnerabilities, and they'll read you. If this person likes what it sees, he or she will follow up by inviting you into his or her scary and dangerous life. Predators have a natural ability for reading targets who are lonely, bored, needy by nature, emotionally wounded, or vulnerable. The predator also has an antenna up for people who put out a subconscious message that they have unfulfilled needs in their lives. The predator is a master at reading your body and eye language, can put together messages you're sending via bodies and eye and verbal, and from there can pretty much tell whether you've been recently dumped or otherwise hurt. Next, it figures out how it can squeeze into the vacant space that's in your life and what you need to hear in order to allow this to happen. Pathological predators often reveal that they can scan a room and sense which person will be the best target for them. They don't know why they have this gift or how they acquired it. They just know that since childhood, they have been working others over. As a child, this dangerous person probably exhibited a lot of the same charming traits that she or he has now. Back then, these skills were used on mothers, teachers, and sisters. It's as though the people in his life or her life felt they had no option but to let him or her get away with whatever it desired. They were no match for this child psychopath. A predator's intuitive sixth sense is untaught, although it usually results from childhood exposure to abusive or dysfunctional environments. But as time goes by and the person grows more successful at using this charm and insight, it begins to learn what works best and what works even better. Early in this person's career as a budding psychopath, it becomes a master of behavioral psychology. Even an adult's skills can't compete with this one's abilities to scam, con, and conquer. All psychopaths, except for those whose condition results from a head injury, begin their careers as pathological children. For a personality disorder to form and to result in psychopathology, the child is usually exposed to abuse and or emotional deficits in early life, specifically between birth and approximately age 7, when the personality structure is actively developing. Beyond that age, personality disorders are less likely to form. In most cases, this means that people with pathological personality disorders endured extremely maladaptive childhoods and have a lot of personal issues as a result. So if somebody suffered enormous trauma as a very young child, that in itself is a very big red flag. However, remember too that some pathology cannot be traced to a known source. We don't always know why someone is pathological. Remember as well that not all psychopaths are bottom-of-the-barrel criminals. Even Ted Bundy was charming, intelligent, and handsome. Predatory people can hide behind the guises of brilliant business people, attorneys, surgeons, or even clergymen. This gives them an even better ability to slip under the radar of those who fail to see their character traits as a sign of problems. As it's probably clear by now, emotional predators also fall into the mentally ill category, which we've covered, usually under the diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. Most also have hidden lives, which is another chapter we covered. When you couple a predator's natural instinct with a lifetime of skills honed by successfully conning, exploiting, and injuring others, you have someone who is nothing short of extraordinarily smooth and capable of horrific dangerousness. Predators' motives vary, but you can be sure a predator wants something from you. That's the entire reason for the relationship. This person isn't merely interested in a date. The predator, by definition, hunts you and uses you for his or her own gain. There is something in you or in your life that is wanted. Maybe all it wants is just your utter adoration, or for you to exalt his or her ego. Maybe it wants to move in with you so it can sponge off you and not have to work. Maybe it just wants your money. Maybe it wants what you can provide to help establish an image. Heard of a trophy? Yes, I have. Maybe it's most interested in the pursuit and conquest of you, to the point where it has a hard time accepting it when you try to break things off. Now, if you escape a predator who has these as motives and not death, as many of them do, you should count your blessings that things didn't go further and learn from the experience. Other types of predators can cost you much more. If it's a sexual predator, you or someone else are a target, whether it be for consensual sex or rape, depending on whichever way it plays out or whichever mood he or she is in. If it's a pedophile, may target your children as prey and use you as the vehicle. It needs a close relationship with you in order to earn your trust and gain access to your children. This is especially true for predators who see your children as your vulnerable issue. These predators seem helpful because they take on the role of father or mother figure, mentor, minister, church youth leader, role model, scout leader, athletic coach. Their in with you is through your child's needs. Too many stories exist of children who've been abused by a coach, teacher, priest, so on. Too often these predators' savvy approach has been to date the mother in order to have access to the children. Children have been brutalized at the hands of these helpful people whom these mothers or fathers have met and thought and brought into their own lives from Christian singles ministries, divorce recovery groups, 12-step programs, dating services, or soccer games. And lastly, the most feared predators are those who literally hunt for the kill. At any given time in the United States, it's estimated that there are hundreds of uncaught killers on the loose. It's hard to imagine that any of these people could make it into your life, but this is what other targets have thought, that they'd never date a rapist, killer, or child abuser, because those people don't show up at your door with their offenses tattooed on their forehead. They can slide in under your radar. By learning to closely heed our red flags, we should only have to shiver at the thought of dating or marrying a predator. For some who end up getting involved with these dangerous creatures, the outcome may be fairly mild. The predator could be just merely a deadbeat, but others, as you'll see, end up with predators who are child molesters, rapists, or killers. Again, the predator's motives are as broad as the pathology. The sicker it is, the sicker the actions. To differentiate a predator from a clinger, who also approaches others with a focused and genuine interest, know that the clinger needs the relationship. A predator does not. Early on, the clinger focuses more on friendship, whereas the predator is more deliberately romantic. Clingers often establish a connection with their targets by focusing on the sad histories they share of being dumped. Predators are shifting chameleons who can be all things to all people. Clingers may be inexperienced in relationships and may come across as a bit clumsy. Predators are as smooth as silk. Clingers are blabbers who tell you everything about their entire lives, while predators are listeners who give up very little information until they are sure it will align with your history. With clingers, targets feel more needed, but with predators, they feel more intrigued.
So, who do they seek? Predators are the most skilled of all the dangerous people at seeking and finding partners who will satisfy their current hunger, whatever it is. The type of target a predator seeks varies depending on the nature of its pathology. Selections based on the need of the predator and your vulnerability. It knows it's a matter of matching need with need. The more it knows about your needs, the better it can meet them. The predator has a nose for vulnerability. So, people who have unmet needs smell especially good to this predator. It seeks partners who need someone who can sense and know them on almost a spiritual level. Since it's good at this, it'll appear to know you well and quickly. Targets who think an important element in dating is having similar interests, hobbies, and backgrounds will be naturally attracted to this chameleon. It will be whatever you have been. It's your male twin or female twin. Those of us who are impressed by the charm and smoothness and whose red flag system doesn't recognize these qualities will be sought out by predators. The difference between other types of dangerous people and predators is that the real predators don't fumble. They are experienced daters who do not blunder, say the wrong things, or come across as inept in relationships. Because predators know what kind of target responds to their personalized hunting instincts, they seek partners with histories. They like partners who had absent fathers, mothers, who taught them to trust unconditionally, or neglectful or abusive husbands or wives. They also like partners who embrace a naive worldview that says people are basically good and that the world is safe. Knowing that many people were trained to believe that people are good at heart, predators present themselves as a person of virtue and honor. If you had an absent father, so much the better. The predator will fill that space for you with its own fatherly ways. But because it's a chameleon, it'll listen closely to see if you also need a mentor, an advisor, or on some topic, a spiritual leader, or a male/female friend for you or your kids. During counseling sessions, Sandra Brown states that she's had some emotional predators there in her sessions, and some have verbalized their targets. One of them said, quote, "I look for naive women. I like a certain vulnerability to her, that she trusts humanity without asking for proof. Maybe she's been hurt a lot, so there's a woundedness to her. Women who are uneducated about the way the real world works are good too. That naivete and vulnerability makes them believe you because they need to believe you. That is sick and evil." Another said, "I like the mentally weak. Women or men who have been pounded down by others and those with childhoods that weren't so good. They are particularly easy." A third said, "I'm good. I can read the room, their body language, and how they are shy with their eyes, or how they react to a mere compliment sets the stage for my work." Although all the people are not just shy, some overcompensate and try to be flashy or cocky. But I know it's the same message underneath. I know what men or women want and need. It's that easy. It's important to understand that each predator has developed its own unique style. It has a type of person that it prefers, because with that type, it's mastered the approach, the dating, and the end. It doesn't have to think very hard if it just uses the profile it's had success with. One predator may prefer recently divorced partners because it succeeds at playing that angle with them. It can talk their jargon. Another might prefer single people or college kids. Other predators seem to get bored and opt to switch the profiles of the targets they go after just for fun. Great people. Why are these emotional predators successful? Well, Sandra Brown says, as mentioned, emotional predators' number one feature is their unbelievable charm. They have an ability to be a great date and to initiate rapid emotional intimacy. In a day and age where we are sick of dates who just don't get it about what we need, these people can show you that they definitely get it. They show you all the attention that Neanderthals you've dated until now have not shown you. They say all the right lines that all the people in your past could never verbalize. They are brilliant and insightful about what you need. They seem to know exactly every pain you have suffered. With more skill than a carnival psychic, the emotional predator can hone in on your every need, sympathize with you in such a way that you believe you've met your long-lost soulmate, and sweep you off your feet before the foam on your beer melts. It's smoother than 40-year-old brandy and more insightful than a therapist. It knows you the way no one ever else has. This hottie moves fast. Every target should be suspect of relationships that seem to be traveling in the fast lane on the superhighway of emotional intimacy. A predator needs to keep you so euphoric with compliments and lovers' talk that you aren't listening, watching, or paying attention. It's dripping with sincerity, looking deep into your eyes, and clinging to every word you say. "I just can't get enough of you," is a masterful line used by the best predators. A predator wants to move in with you or marry you quickly because time is against it. To move the relationship along and become indispensable to you, it must act helpful, comforting, and generous. Since it's working against the clock, it must find out what you need and then meet that need. Are your gutters clogged? Any man, in this case, knows that single women have undone honey-do lists. He can become the Hank the Handyman immediately, up on the roof, quicker than Rudolph. He unclogs your gutter and notices and fixes some loose shingles while he's at it. Did you just lose a parent? Well, he knows all about the grief process, and over a bottle of wine has you crying into his hanky as he pats your hand. Do your kids need attention? He's got them hiking, biking, and fishing all weekend long. Your electric bill is 15 days late? He'd be happy to help you with this, even though you just met him. While listening to you and observing you, he, or she actually, will glean a lot of information about your hobbies, interests, spiritual beliefs, and value systems. He or she is the original identity thief. It uncovers and uses for its own purposes everything it can about what makes you, you. He or she will find you amazing, beautiful, bright, and talented, like no one he or she has ever met before. It will align how it portrays itself with your needs and also your interests until you feel like you are looking at your twin. Finally, another way some predators succeed with targets is by preying on their compassion. Most of the examples you will encounter in this chapter are of predators who use a strong, confident, and assertive approach with their target. Yet, predators will approach their partner in any number of manners, depending on what will work with her. Ted Bundy kept medical props in the trunk of his car. He accomplished one of his final slayings by putting a fake cast on his leg and flagging a woman down on the highway. Other predators fake illnesses, limps, or near-death experiences in order to attract others' compassion. And once the target is in the grip of the predator, anything can happen. Now, Sandra, she actually gives a number of stories in her book of different targets of such emotional predators. However, an interesting...
Okay, I normally edit such things out, but that face I just made, I saw a spider running across the floor and had to stop the tape. Anyway, I was saying that Sandra has many different stories of different targets of such predators, but at the very end, well, almost the very end, she's got the very interesting thing, which I'm not covering all the stories. If you want to read the stories, you can find this book for $1 on Amazon used. But at the end of the story, she says it's called Any Person's Story. And the question's very valid. It's, what happens when the predator is a professional? How much more convincing is it when it's also your doctor, dentist, therapist, attorney, or accountant? This situation is far from unusual. Since predators are usually bright and persuasive, it's possible for a target to invite a predator into your life by requiring the professional services that it has available. That's what occurred in a small North Carolina town. It was eventually noticed that a particular doctor had different practices for single women than he did for those who were married or who brought family members to their appointments. He over-medicated many of the women patients until they developed drug dependencies and kept them reliant on him. He collected emotionally dependent and drug-dependent women as trophies. He saw these patients more frequently than he did other patients and prescribed more drugs for them than he did for other patients with the same diagnosis. He raged at any of his staff who questioned his practices. It is not uncommon for patients to think doctors are above reproach and to avoid questioning the medical care they receive. Such a mindset gives professional predators all the bait they need to reel in their prey. The doctor camouflaged his abuse of patients by focusing the other half of his practice on holistic approaches to health, by referring patients for acupuncture, using guided imagery, and suggesting vitamins, herbs, and other alternative medicines. He appeared to be a progressive health practitioner instead of the predator that he really was. When accusations arose that he was over-medicating some of his patients, he would point to his holistic practices and claim, "That's not what I'm all about. This is what I believe in." Meanwhile, the unfortunate women who fell prey to him had succumbed to the attention he paid to their every need and to the narcotics he prescribed that helped them escape their lonely lives. Most of them became addicted both to the meds he prescribed and to the attention he paid them. One of the women who came under the doctor's spell was Jo, a single 62-year-old who had lots of emotional problems. She also had a blood disorder that kept her confined to her home, mostly by her choice. Her only daughter lived in another state, and she had few friends and no other relatives. Her only link to the outside world was the doctor. He made house calls to see Jo after hours. She would meet him at the door with a bottle of wine and a plate of cheese, wearing her best frilly lingerie. They chatted and drank wine and acted as if it were a social visit. Jo would flirt with him and report on her mounting pain and anxiety. The evening would end with a new stack of prescriptions for Jo and a promise from the good doctor to visit again soon for their special time together. Jo's daughter arrived for a visit and was shocked to find nearly 20 bottles of similar medications, all of which her mother was taking at one time. When the daughter asked to meet with the doctor to discuss the medications, he refused. Once an investigation was opened into his practice, there turned out to be dozens of other single women with no families who were sharing bottles of wine and receiving stacks of prescriptions from this dangerous doctor. Jo died an early death one night in her sleep. The cause of death was attributed to her blood disorder, but those who knew her and knew the doctor know that the underlying reason for her death was the misguided trust she placed in a predator. Now, as your defense strategy, a common problem in many people's dating behavior is disclosing too much too soon to partners that they do not know, which I can attest this is 1000% true. She, Sandra, refers to this habit as verbal bulimia. It's a catch-22 because one of the ways you get to know someone is by talking. But in this dangerous age, she encourages you to listen twice as much as you speak. In fact, turn the tables and ask open-ended questions yourself. Don't immediately tell a new person about your interests, your past relationships, failures, your family history, or your career. Instead, listen to it. See if its story lines up with what it said before. Use disclosures to find out if you have anything in common. You decide. Don't give this person enough information for him or her to become everything you ever wanted. Monitor how he or she acts when you don't give the information it's trying to get from you? Does it simply work harder to get you to talk about yourself? If it doesn't have the information about you, does it answer questions about itself in vague ways, trying to avoid committing to any particular description of him or herself? Too many targets, when they're given a little attention, begin telling about him or herself at warp speed. That is not a safe approach when you are in the presence of someone who might have predatory traits. Remember also that being swept off your feet simply means you're no longer grounded. That is, you no longer have your feet firmly planted on the ground so you can pace reality eyeball to eyeball. If your new relationship is a whirlwind, that is a clue. If he or she insists on spending day and night and day and night with you right away, you'd better put on the brakes. Open the car door and bail. Most of us know that people aren't really that interested in the minute details about our feelings, thoughts, and routines. If your date hasn't blinked or breathed since you started talking, that is a heads up. If it seems too familiar with other partners' feelings, ask yourself, how did this person get to be that familiar with this? These smoothies come on so convincingly that they make you forget about your own value system. If you're doing things you never thought you'd do and it concerns you, stop.
Look, if you have something against transgendered lesbians, well, that's your problem. Your daughter has no problem with it, so buzz off. Or else. I know who you are.
All I can say is I'm the happiest transgendered lesbian who's about to be a star in the world.
What's the matter?
Please,
Don't stretch me.
look out for me.